What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we're going to be doing our post-Super Bowl 2 round mock draft. If you are new, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Below my face is my board. It's being continuously updated, and it is completely transparent. Just keep in mind, this is not who I think will go in the top 32, nor does the top 32 players get drafted every year end up being the best 32. So I do ask for some patience, and if you do want to understand why I think this about certain players, feel free to go over and follow me on X, because I do post all 22 clips there whenever I am doing scouting reports. And then, of course, I do have positional rankings as well, because we do have a new coach in the NFL as a head coach in Kellen Moore on the Saints. We're wearing our Alvin Kamara Tennessee jersey today. So we actually have had meteoric growth. So I also love being able to wear these on in terms of like being able to keep the momentum alive, keep the energy up. And, you know, this jersey just, it gets you going. But so let's get into this. Let's have a great time starting out with the number 1 overall pick. There are going to be no trades in this because we're going to do a 3-round mock draft with trades, as I do every single week later this week. So I'm super excited for that, to test out some new theories. Starting out with the number 1 overall pick, we have the Tennessee Titans. And, you know, this is like the big debate. Is a quarterback going to go number 1 overall? And I kind of want to throw a curveball here because, you know, I do think that after watching how, you know, Patrick Mahomes essentially got dismantled, the new GM, also formerly of Kansas City, understands A, there is value to a quarterback, absolutely, but B, Cam Ward has to be at that Patrick Mahomes level to overcome a lot. And even if that is true, can't overcome great pass rush, and neither can you overcome offensive line deficiencies. So again, without trades in this, I'm actually going to roll the dice because I haven't done this in a hot minute. I'm going to go Abdul Carter here out of Penn State. I do think they should try to take a swing on a quarterback in the first few rounds or go through free agency. I know Brian Callahan has a pretty damn long leash there from people who I know who have good connections into the org, but I do think at that point as well, you know, he might deal with some frustration with Will Levis. I know he doesn't like Will Levis, but, you know, building the best team, and again, watching how, you know, even Jalix Hunt was able to walk Joe Tooney into a quarterback, like, pass rush can truly give you the best chance to win any game. Doesn't matter the talent of quarterback. And Abdul Carter, as a pass rusher, is the second best player in the class, which is why he's there at number 2 on my board. At number 2, overall, we have the Cleveland Browns. And there certainly are some questions regarding like whether you should go after a quarterback here with Cam Ward. I think that it's certainly reasonable to suggest that that would be a smart move. I do think that, you know, the leash it's something where I've talked about the leash being short on Brian Dable as well as Joe Shane. I think it's also pretty damn short on Kevin Stefanski. I mean, you're probably trading away your best asset as well. And so it is kind of like retooling year. And if you're going to retool, you'll go after the quarterback that fits you best. And that is Cam Ward, right? So I do have that thought. But on top of that, you know, the offensive coordinator is now linked with Jalen Milroe. Do you want to spend a 4th-round pick on him, bring a free agency quarterback in? Sam Darnold, for example, played very well in the NFC North. Do you want to do a 2-year, $70 million contract there, see what's good while developing Jalen Milroe, and have the offensive coordinator basically get his quarterback back again? I'm going to say that's the route they should go. I don't think Cam Ward necessarily will be all of that in Cleveland. I think they have offensive line deficiencies that they need to fix up. And, you know, we should do a Myles Garrett trade just because, and I think that's pretty damn obvious that it should be happening. So if he's asking about it, it will happen. And I do think it'll happen before draft day. We'll make this quick. I've done a lot of them where I discussed a ton of different landing spots, but this time we'll go with the roll of the dice and say he goes to Detroit. I do think Detroit, Washington, those are 2 key places. But for Detroit, their biggest issue that I think they need to address is edge rusher. So if you do sacrifice essentially, 28, 60, and then maybe a future 1 or 2, not both, but feel free to, again, you know, tweak that as you will. I'm going to have it be in this mock draft that you guys end up going after that route, because it is one of those 2 picks going to be an edge rusher. So you're only giving up a second and a future first to bring on Myles Garrett to give you a really strong push. And you are a Super Bowl competitor. So again, feel free to tweak it, but for the sake of this mock draft, so that we also do have the picks in here as well, I think that's also, you know, for transparency's sake, we're not going to waste a mock draft that way. I think that's good for us to have it in there. So at number 2 overall, You could go after the QB route, get tackle at 28, but I also think that going after best player available has been a much better strategy. Again, I said sign Sam Darnold or whatever free agent quarterback you think can kind of keep you going. And for those of y'all who say you don't have the cap for it, don't quote me on this, but I did hear from people who know far better about the cap than I do that there's an insurance policy on Deshaun Watson that goes into effect if he gets injured, and he is. It'll free up $40 million in cap. Again, do not fully quote me on that, but that is coming from somebody that I honestly trust pretty damn well. So there is a chance as well that you do have that cap to be able to bring on a quarterback like Sam Darnold. Number 3 overall, we have the New York Giants, and this is going to be easy peasy for me. Like, I really love the idea of Cam Ward on the Giants. Like, it's the best for Cam Ward because Dable can work with that platform. Dable hasn't had a quarterback since Josh Allen that has had the arm talent that Cam Ward has. He's been kind of just keeping things afloat there with Daniel Jones, and obviously that did not end up working out. So we give the best situation for Cam. We give the best situation for Brian. Brian needs to be in the best situation for his job. That's why I do think with an actual trade, we might end up seeing the Giants ending up moving to number 1. And, because future capital doesn't matter very much to people who don't probably have a job without that future or without that quarterback. So continuing on. Number 4 overall, we have the New England Patriots. And with Mike Vrabel there, I can absolutely see them going after the defensive route more than the offensive. So Travis Hunter's off the board. And again, there are no trades in this outside of course, the one obvious one, which was Myles Garrett. But we're not doing pick trades outside of Myles Garrett because it's just pretty much a guarantee at this point. So Tetaroa, I think, would provide the best return on investment for New England. Tackles are not worth it at this point. Like, I love Josh Simmons as a pre-injury grade. The pluses are guys who have, those are pre-injury grades. So I'm not going to be the one I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to tell you exactly how it should affect their career. We haven't seen them since. So I'm not going to be the one to say, oh, well, Josh Simmons is going to drop 5 points because he had a season-ending leg injury. Just going to be honest. I loved him that much before. He will be lower than that, probably post. And that's okay. But I just don't think the tackles are worth it here. I think the positions you're going to be looking at is defensive interior Mason Graham, cornerback Will Johnson. And Will Johnson's unbelievable. I mean, he is ridiculous. But I do want to throw a curveball in here because I have yet to take Mason Graham to New England in a hot minute. And I really like the idea, the prospect of doing that. We're going to go Mason Graham at number 4. The health of Christian Barmore, unreliable. The talent, undoubtable. But Mason Graham is going to be somebody who is an instant upgrade right there, kind of be the Jeffrey Simmons, so to speak, in terms of that quick pass rush ability. At number 5 for the Jacksonville Jaguars, we have the Tetaroa McMillan, Will Johnson debate here. And some people think that it's just Will Johnson, no doubt. And based on my board, I can 100% agree. But you have to look at the head coach that's coming in and the vision for this team. And the vision is help Trevor. We have an offensive coach. Tetaroa has been in a division with Drake London. He had Mike Evans. There is a clear role for Tetaroa McMillan. Don't mess around. As much as I love Will Johnson, and I think he might even be bigger impact on the Jaguars, I think that it is clear that if you can follow the vision, Tetaroa McMillan will easily be worth this selection. And easily, that's a big stretch, but he will certainly be worth the selection in this particular role. At number 6 for the Raiders, it would be disingenuous to pass on Sheduer at this point. But I do have that concern that the Raiders should just go Will Johnson here and go Will Howard later. Now, if you guys saw my quarterback video before, this was obviously like towards the end of the season, I do have Shedeur Sanders pretty much barely ahead of Will Howard. I also have Shedeur Sanders QB1. So you see where exactly my head's at in terms of the quarterback value with Will Howard. And with Chip Kelly as your offensive coordinator, you could really fuck some shit up, if you were going to be honest, by going Will Johnson, Quinshon Judkins, and then end up going Will Howard in the 3rd, and you combine him with maybe even Travion Henderson to create a crazy backfield. But I don't think you need to double up at running back. I think there's some other positions you can target there. So I think, honestly, with Pete Carroll as well at the helm, like, Pete's not going to see the necessity of Sheduer over the value of Will Howard. And we're going to throw the curveball here, and it's not really one because it is certainly a debate that the Raiders will be going, like, it's a debate. It's not crazy that Will Johnson, the best player in the class, in my opinion, goes at number 6, and Pete Carroll looks at Will Johnson essentially as a better version of what, I mean, obviously like a first round version or a hindsight bias version of Richard Sherman coming out. But Will Johnson pretty much is the defensive player of the year, Patrick Surtain. He's just coming off an injury. He would have been probably the number 2 or number 1 overall pick if he stayed healthy the whole year. You're getting that at number 6, and you get to have Will Howard probably in the 3rd round. I'm going to say that's kind of a win. So we're going to continue on here with the Jets. And the Jets said bye-bye to Aaron Rodgers. There's nobody really good at this spot. This is where Shedeur Sanders lands. If you're that butthurt about Sheduer not going at 6, flip him and Will Johnson. It really won't like massively affect the mock draft. And, you know, maybe it would affect what I do with the Raiders in round 2. But even at that, probably not too much. So at number 6, though, we have, or number 8, excuse me, we have the Carolina Panthers. And a lot of good choices here. You can't go wrong. You can't. I saw Tyler Warren in a mock draft recently, and I was like, that is intriguing for sure. But I don't necessarily think Canales will value a tight end at that rate, so I'm not going to do that. I do think they look at the edge route here. And defensive interior, I mean, I saw Walter Nolan in a mock draft yesterday, and I think via trade back, that's acceptable. I really like Walter Nolan. My opinion of him has shot up so much. The more I watch of him, the more I like him. But it's not to the point where I'd say he's worth the number 8 overall pick. Just saying. Like, not going to happen. Malachi Starks is a fun one, but round 2, we're going to have a safety there. So, like, we'll just leave it at that. I think with the guys who are available on the board right now, I think the smart thing to do would be to go after edge. And James Pierce Jr., I mean, I think when people watch the tape, you're going to be a little bit spooked at 6'5", 243. But I honestly think that there's going to be, like, a lot of people realizing how strong James Pierce is on tape. And I'm forgetting if it were, I think it was Jalix Hunt who ended up pretty much blowing up like a run lane when I think there was a pulling guard in the Super Bowl. But regardless of that, James Pierce essentially did that to Tyler Booker. Like, Booker is my number 11 player, and James Pierce ended up stopping him in his tracks and stuffing a run lane. Not going to lie, this dude deserves to be a top 10 pick, and I'm going to continue planting my flag in there. I know enough people who love James Pierce to where it's going to happen, and I will be honest, I do not have it confirmed, but people who I very, very much trust know that there's some off-the-field issues with Mike Green. So, for those of y'all who really love Mike Green, there are some things that are not being talked about that I cannot confirm, but I mean, it's coming from multiple different people who do not talk to each other. And there's a reason he went to Marshall. I'll just put it there. You can do your research. There's like one article that's talking about it, but it goes even deeper than that. But there's some off the field stuff with Mike Green that I do think could end up leading him to drop. Leaving the New Orleans Saints at number 9, though. This is an easy shoe-in for me based on Kellen Moore being here. It's Tyler Warren. You know, again, people are going to be a little bit feathers ruffled on this one, and that's okay. I mean, you see tight end 9, you're like, ugh. But I think that Tyler Warren is instantly going to be, talent-wise, a top 10 tight end, maybe even a top 5. But with Kellen Moore and how much he loves tight ends, how much he values tight ends, how little value that the Saints have right now in terms of a reliable contested catch guy, but on top of that, just someone who you can go to time and time again who has a bigger frame, it just makes too much sense. And I think he would end up being he will be a top 5 tight end probably fantasy-wise. If not, he might be the number 1 tight end fantasy-wise. I'm just going to throw that out there. It would not be mind-boggling to me at all to see Tyler Warren usurp Brock Bowers just because of, like, there's nobody else on the Saints that I would trust with the target share that Tyler Warren should get. So maybe there's that. I mean, to be fair, again, we're talking about 1A, 1B right now in terms of fantasy, but I'm not a big fantasy guy. Let's continue on. At number 10 overall, we got the Chicago Bears. And Ashton Jeanty is the one that I get extremely excited about. I will say, you have Dennis Allen as your DC. If he has enough sway, which I don't think he does, I would say curveball pick would be Mykel Williams here. I would also say that offensive line, I've been talking about Ashton Jeanty, and I'm probably going to go that route again just because I do think that the running back value is insane. I also think that interior offensive line is also insane with value, and you will have somebody at 39 or 41 where you are extremely happy. But I'm just gonna put that out there. People say it's like you go guard or you miss out on the offensive lineman in round 1, that it's all hell breaking loose. But I honestly think that this running back class is overrated comparatively to the offensive line class. No one's giving the offensive line class credit because there's not that many true tackles. But there's enough guard tackle hybrids with tackle potential, and that's exactly what the Bears should be looking for, to where I don't feel the necessity of taking him at 10. I do not think there's a running back that's close to this tier of Genty and Hampton. Like, I do think it's a noticeable drop off. And then you get to Scatabo, and then you also get to Judkins, and then you can talk about Johnson, Henderson, Sampson. Like, there are some very good backs in this class, but there are 2 top backs in this class, and it is a very noticeable top 2 backs in this class. And there is really no competition, in my opinion, for those 2. And again, I love quite a few of the other ones. If you talk about Will Campbell, Josh Simmons, who I love as well, but you're talking about the value that you can get in the second round, there's not going to be a billion offensive linemen that go. It's just not feasible. So I do not think there's going to be that rush to where you are going to be, slim pickings at 39. You're going to get a first round interior offensive lineman, potentially a tackle guard hybrid at 39 or 41. And so you sure as hell are not going to be getting a round 1 guaranteed running back like Ashton Genty, who is built to literally carry the entire offense on his back, and he doesn't even need to, because you have Williams, you have Adunze, you have more. And so fix the offensive line through multiple rounds, but get the best player available at each spot and do what's best for your offense. And Ben Johnson would love Ashton Genty. At number 11, we got the Niners sitting here. And again, no trades. If Mike Green's off the field checks out, which again, do your own research, but there's a reason why he's at Marshall. It wasn't because he wasn't good coming out of college. Like, he is transferred for an off the field reason. Like, there is a very good chance that you go after that edge route. But I also look in the second round, right? You look in the second round, or even the third round, I should say, and there are so many good players. You can even wait till like the 3rd or 4th round and get Oladejo, APR, which I don't think you should. But you end up loading up on those guys, and you can put them into the Will McDonald role there for Robert Saleh. I think that's like absolute fireworks. And at number 11 overall, there's a couple players I'm looking at, and one of the key ones is Josh Simmons, right? I love Josh Simmons, love Will Campbell. I would want someone who could be a true right tackle, so Josh Simmons would be the one that I'd be looking at there. Connerly had that one embarrassing rep. I think that would scare enough people. My hot take is honestly Trapilo via trade back in the first. I don't know why people aren't giving him enough credit. I mean, the dude played left and right tackle at the Senior Bowl and arguably did it better than any other tackle. But I'm obviously not going to be going that route. To be fair, though, I do think I want to throw, because you guys have been asking for this for a while, so I want to give it to you. Even though Milton Williams, I think his highest likelihood is to go here, kind of repeat the Javon Hargrave cycle. We're going to go Walter Nolan, and we're going to see how that ends up, chain reacting the draft, because I'm not used to doing that. But Walter Nolan is somebody, if he fixes his balance, which, oh my God, the amount of times this dude's on the ground is ridiculous. But, I mean, he fires out with so much force that he almost doesn't get himself back underneath. So leverage is not an issue, but the quick wins, he absolutely can be extremely dynamic. Defensive interior absolutely is a need that you guys need to target. So I'm excited to see how this board ends up falling, or how the draft ends up falling with Walter Nolan going in the first. For the Cowboys at number 12, again, I always say this is my least favorite pick of the entire draft. Like, there's not a good enough pick here. And this is the dream trade down spot. And luckily for y'all, I mean, I guess unluckily because of who you traded your 4th round pick for, there is actually some picks that you might want to reacquire. So I think there certainly should be at least that focus there. I will say, going after offensive line here, not a horrible idea. Not a horrible idea at all. Honestly, I would put Gray Zabel to guard and then have him be the long-term replacement there for Zach Martin. I think Gray Zabel is a super stud, but Josh Simmons could play your left tackle spot. He is one of the very few left tackles in this class, and end up kicking, Guyton to right tackle. Steele can end up, either fucking off or going to right guard, and then you also end up having you could go with Hoffman at your right guard spot as well. So I think that might be the best option. I know that people love Luther Burden to this team. And, Matt Golden, it's a little bit too early for him, but I mean, to be fair, what are we going to get at 44? It is a question that you need to ask yourself. Like, is there going to be something else that we need to do? But the creepy thing to me, creepy is probably a bad term, but the weird thing to me, why the hell are you exploring trade options for Micah? Just pay the dude the bag. I know you guys have issues with your cap, but I mean, hell, there's capologists around that will make it work, and that's someone that you need to make it work. Oh, Cowboys, you guys are a pain in my ass. Like, you guys are a royal pain in my ass. I love you, but you're a royal pain in my ass. This is a team that's taken interior offensive line with Tyler Smith in the first round. I think they'll probably try to do it again. And, looking at Guyton, looking at Smith, I know they like that flexibility in terms of the speed as well as the interior-exterior versatility. And I'm pretty sure Tyler Smith had pretty solid arm length as well. Same thing with Tyler Guyton. And I think Josh Simmons doesn't have that question the way Will Campbell, Kelvin Banks will. I'm going to throw the curveball here and go Josh Simmons, who will play guard in the short run unless they're happy enough to put Tyler Guyton back to his native position at right tackle. Josh Simmons would have been a top 10, if not top 5 selection if he stayed healthy through the whole year. At number 13, we got the Miami Dolphins. I think I might want to just go the old but gold route here with Malachi Starks. You don't have safeties on the roster, and, he is just that good. Old but gold. You're not going to be drafting a guard round 1. You've drafted tackles before round 1, but you're not going to be drafting a guard round 1. Defensive interior Walter Nolan would have been a cool curveball. I have also seen, you could go Jalen Walker here round 1. Seriously, I have no idea why Trev doesn't have Jalen Walker that high, but it is what it is. We're going to go Malachi Starks out of Georgia. At number 14 for the Indianapolis Colts, this is a quick and easy one for me. It's Benjamin Morrison all day, every day. True boundary corner right down the street. I mean, this dude is so damn good. Before injury, would have been my number 4 player in the class. And, people are not shitting on Siobhan Revell at all. And somehow Ben Morrison is taking the massive tumble because he got hurt. But even though we saw him this year, we haven't seen Siobhan Revell play NFL talent since week 1 of 2023. Just saying. It's a little bit weird. Maybe there's some smokescreen in there. But at 15 for the Atlanta Falcons, another team that should be trading back. Again, you guys have literally nothing in terms of draft capital. Somehow, some people think that's a brilliant idea to bring Myles Garrett into the equation when you have enough holes to deal with, brothers. Take it one step at a time, will you? One step at a time. But I don't know why wide receiver is the biggest need. I'm just going to be real. Pass rush is the biggest need. And so I think that getting yourself a quality off-the-ball linebacker, Jalen Walker, who has the flexibility to be a pass rusher, I prefer the solid foundation of the linebacker. And then I want the upside of the edge rusher. I think that is more valuable than what people want to give it credit for. I thought about him at 13. Honestly, could have thought about him at 11 as well. But I'm going to be taking him here at 15 overall. Jalen Walker, linebacker out of Georgia. Again, we're going to be addressing edge rusher as well, probably, or even corner in the second round. But at least now we have an upgrade to the pass rush and a solid foundation in run defense. At number 16 for the Arizona Cardinals, Mike Green, again, I will continue hammering this in, does have some off-the-field concerns. I have not done a police report on it, but there's enough sources saying enough about it to where there's some concern there. And I've seen him slip out of the first in a couple mock drafts recently. I wonder if that's coming to fruition. And some teams are having their concerns because talent and athletic potential, it's there. It is there. But I do think that there is certainly some questions to talk about. Again, the dark horse pick, if Josh Simmons is somehow at this spot, is to go after Josh Simmons, just because you guys have the offensive line coach from Ohio State. You guys need to continue addressing offensive line going forward. But defensive interior-wise, you could try to address it with someone like Tyleik Williams. Hot take, Darius Alexander could somehow rise all the way to the creme de la creme here with a very good combine, which at 304 and 6'3" and 7/8, I think he easily could. But I think we got to go after edge. You got to do what you got to do. And Mike Green makes a lot of sense, but I do think that we'll go after someone with maybe a little bit less questions, and that's Mykel Williams here out of Georgia. I know that people don't love that pick, but the flexibility, the intensity that he plays with, effort's never been a problem with Mykel. And he's improved year over year. Say what you want about him, the sacks and all this, but if you look at the progression he's made as a player, I think that's going to continue, and that will yield you a top-end player. He is really, really solid. At number 17, we got the Cincinnati Bengals, and a lot of good picks to go with. Obviously, if Ben Morrison is here, I want to get Golden, his guy. But Will Campbell's the one that I usually stick and pick with. Let's see if maybe we could entertain some other options. Honestly, Gray Zabel would be the one who I'd be most intrigued about. I think he's the best interior offensive lineman in the entire class. And that's coming from me, Mr. No Small Schools type of guy. He is ridiculous. I don't think people are giving him enough credit at all. And he will be the guard for this team. This team needs a guard desperately. Of course, at the same time, you could just go after someone like Nick Scorton and just have a solid floor weapon for you. Sometimes you just need the floor to work, but I also don't know if they're going to give up on Murphy just yet and draft another first-round edge rusher. Defensive interior, McKinley, Jackson, as well as Christian Jenkins makes me feel comfortable enough waiting to resupply that position or at least reinforce it. The one position that is the most desperate to me by a long shot is interior offensive line. And I think Will Campbell makes a lot of sense to this team, but I think Gray Zabel is just such a fucking savage that I'm going to take him above Will Campbell and call it a day. At 18 for the Seattle Seahawks, I've talked about this. Offensive line needs to be paramount. I think that Jahad Campbell is my second favorite pick for this team, but sometimes he even falls to pick 50, so crazy shit happens. Will Campbell's going to be my selection here to play guard in the short run, even potentially tackle in the long, but regardless, you're getting yourself, no pun intended, a damn good offensive lineman there. At number 19 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, could even see a run on interior offensive line because I've seen a lot of people trying to mock interior offensive line to the Buccaneers. But for me, I look at Mike Green here and, off the field questions might kick him down. Again, there certainly is that question there. And so I think that it's more likely that they try to take a swing on Jahad Campbell. But I will say at 19, teams will be liking him in this range, even with some questions. Hopefully he just grows up from what I've learned about him. The talent is undeniable, and he got better over the offseason. It's good to see that. We'll say and mitigate the concern by taking him here at 19. At 20 for the Denver Broncos, a lot of positions you can go. You got Colston Loveland here, who I definitely think should be at least entertained. I also do think that Amarian Hampton should be entertained because Amarian Hampton is a super stud. But of course, you guys also are in a position where you have the luxury of going multiple spots or multiple different routes at this point. I'm actually going to go Amarian Hampton here because tight end wise, I actually don't have Colston as my tight end 2. I do have Fannin as my tight end 2. Colston Loveland right on his ass at number 3. But if you end up getting Elijah Arroyo in round 2 or Harold Fannin for that matter, I feel like that's a better deal. And I do think one of the two will slip to that spot. That's a better deal than going Colston Loveland here and an inferior running back there in the second. You're looking for someone who can be a top-end, reliable piece there to take the stress off Bo Nix. And I just don't think this running back class is as good as what people think. I don't know why people call this a legendary running back class. I don't think it is. I think there's a clear top 2, and then there is a really solid bunch of dudes. But if you're looking for RB1s, guys who can be the lead back, this is not the class for you. You need to take one early. And that's what's going to happen here with Hampton as well as Genty. At number 21 for the Pittsburgh Steelers, quarterback is going to be no, fuck that shit. I mean, I've seen it before. I'm like, oh my God. I think I saw somebody pop up with Jackson Dart, and I'm like, no. I don't know if it was Field Yates who did that. Obviously, we'll be reviewing those this week as well. But it's just such a ball kicker to see quarterback get forced early because, we made that mistake before. If we do it again, then we just deserve to go through absolute frustration and hell. But the corners, you could end up trying to wait till round 2. There's some guys who I really love. I love Jalen Smith. To me, I think he's Jair Alexander, but he's not going to go until the 3rd round. Just going to put that out there again. That's why I say that my board is not predictive. It is just based on the players who I love the most. Andrew Phillips was a top 15 guy for me last year. Ended up probably being a top 15 player in the class. So I'm really happy with how that turned out. Wide receiver wise, you got Burden, Abuka, and Golden. I do think that has to be the option at this point. I will say I've taken Golden before because I said hey, I want a true boundary receiver. And I think that's certainly still very possible. But Golden's bounced around Texas, so he kind of values the geography of Texas. I assume to be closer to family, but he's not proven in the cold. And that's not like, let's not big brain it here. Talent is talent, but some guys genuinely perform better in warmer climates. So I might hold off on taking Matt Golden here. And for once, I might actually look at Ibuka and Burden. Ibuka is just so reliable. Again, I'm not someone to tell Brian Hartline that he doesn't know what he's talking about in terms of the slot to boundaries, like rep differential. But I mean, at the same time, if you have Marvin Harrison, Jeremiah Smith, like Carnell Tate, sometimes you just have to put the guys in the spot where maybe he is, like Emeka is kind of going to be solid on the boundary, but, you know, the other guys wouldn't be as good in the slot. Maybe that's Brian Hartline's vision. So I'm changing my tone on this. I just want someone to be reliable. That's my biggest goal, man. Get someone who's reliable. We'll put Emeka on the boundary. And then, I mean, again, you don't let consistency and like a solid player like Ibuka, like, you don't stop yourself from taking someone like that because you hope that Roman Wilson will be able to be your guy in the slot. So I get it. I've made the counter argument before, but I'm actually, taking a little bit of a step back. At 22 for the Los Angeles Chargers, you got Kelvin Banks here. I think that might have to be the move, but I don't know. There's a lot of really good defensive linemen here at this point. KG, of course, can go back to Minter. I would love that. You got Kelvin Banks here, though, that I just really don't think would slip too much farther than this. But to be fair, Colson Loveland's here. They do value tight end. Harbaugh values tight end, and it literally is his tight end. So let's not play games. Let's not be cute. Let's go Colson Loveland at 23 for the Green Bay Packers. Ooh, a lot of fun options here. A lot of fun options. Fighter D line coach. So I do think edge is not necessarily a primary factor. I think at 55, you could try to go after edge as well. We're going to go the corner route here. And I don't think that your team will go after an injury, like a post-injury player, Siobhan Ravel. The question is Zaire Thomas, Darian Porter, or Trey Amos? Like, those are the three. And I love all three of them. That's the thing. I love them all. But Darian Porter, he's going to test in like the 4.2s. And he's a former wide receiver. And he was a really good special teamer as well. I can see Gutekunst just absolutely falling in love with Darian Porter and selecting him here at 23. It's going to sound crazy, but he is about 6'2 to 6'4. Forgetting the exact figure right now from the Senior Bowl, but he was listed 6'4", 200. And he's a little bit on the older side, but no one cares about age when the age doesn't matter unless you're talking about someone on your team for like 15 years at this point. Like, age also is usually like what people use as a reflection of experience. And Darian Porter, for the experience he has had meteoric growth and has shown that his receiver skill set has transferred very, very well. He can play in the climate, super smooth. And the thing is, he's tested out and people say he'll be running the 4.2s. He probably was the best corner at the Senior Bowl as well. So just add all that together. I do think that it's a move that could happen. Number 24 for the Vikings. Again, no trade backs. I'm going to be going Kelvin Banks here to play a guard. Like, sometimes you just got to take your dude. And then also, with the concern of Darsaw coming off his season-ending injury, you do have that flexibility for tackle as well. I just have an issue with Kelvin Banks' feet. That's just my problem. I don't trust him. But, I do think that in this situation, he'd end up thriving a lot. At number 25 for the Houston Texans, Luther Burden and offensive line. Like, that's where it's at. And the receiving core is decimated. Again, the best way to help your quarterback is to go after offensive line. But it's also at 57. There's going to be some good offensive linemen there. I don't really think the same of the value of Luther Burden. At number 26, Luther would have been my dream pick there for the Los Angeles Rams. We do not get that luxury. Could have went after Matt Golden there in Houston, but again, I think Luther Burden is just going to be fantastic. But a team that could use Matt Golden here is the Rams. You're going to be losing out on Cooper Kupp, and again, you do have Tutu Atwell, but Tutu's not signed to a massive contract. I think he might have 1 year left on his deal off the top of my head. He might even be up for a contract this year. Matt Golden, like, with the loss of Cooper Kupp, that's going to be a massive target share that needs to be redistributed somewhere else. I'm going to go after it. We're going to go Matt Golden out of Texas here and just take a super weapon. And for my Rams fans, why are there so many people talking about a Matt Stafford trade? Like, I'm just going to be so honest. I keep asking people. It's like, I don't understand where people guarantee that Matt Stafford is tradable at this point. Just it's kind of weird. Kind of weird. But maybe I'm missing something. So please fill me in on that. At 27 for the Baltimore Ravens, I love going this route. I love going Josh Connerly. He can play guard in the short run if you do end up going and retaining your left tackle in Ronnie Stanley, but he also could play left tackle if you need to right away. He's mobile. He's used to having mobile quarterbacks. It's just built for the system. Josh Connerly's still fantastic. My number 13 player in the class. Number 28, we got the Cleveland Browns also kind of disarming the Browns of a guaranteed stud there in Josh Connerly. Again, this was the Lions pick that they ended up trading for Myles Garrett. So at this point, we ended up already going after Travis Hunter. You could go Shedeur Sanders to kind of balance it out. Nick Scotton would be a really solid player as well. But I think the biggest issue is the left tackle spot. And you could go Ozzy Trapilo and hope about it, but I'm going to go after someone who's already been in the state of Ohio and ended up balling out at left tackle, and that's Donovan Jackson out of the Ohio State University. At number 29, we have the Washington Commanders. And, good spot overall as a franchise. And I think this is the prime opportunity to go look at Scotton, look at Stewart, look at Tuamalau. You're in a good spot to be. And I think Nick Scotton, you look at the potential of Shemar Stewart, might be intriguing to someone like Dan Quinn, but I think getting consistency is key. And it's going to be cornerback or edge for me. And to be fair, I might want to be a little bit different and go after the cornerback route here just because, like, first off, don't be a PFF rank watcher. Just like you're not looking at my board for how everybody else should draft their mock drafts, don't look at Trev's board and do the same. Like, it kind of exposes you as a lower IQ individual in terms of the football world. But I think edge rusher was elevated so much by the coaching this year that they're not going to value it nearly the way that you could with someone like a Zaire Thomas. But also at the same time, like, Mikey was good on the boundary. So you could also go after, someone like Armand Membu here or Ozzy Trapilo. And honestly, Membu's not a bad idea. He's somebody who should be playing true right tackle, but needs to have some time polishing up as a guard while Cosme gets healthy, right? So I could totally see that being the case. And then Ozzy Trapilo literally is not too far away from DC there at Boston College in Massachusetts. I could totally see them saying, hey, this is going to be our future at right tackle. We're going to value it. And Boston College had some good mobile quarterbacks. I think Ozzy Trapilo, he's moved up noticeably on my board to number 16 overall. Has right tackle, left tackle versatility based on how well he played in the one-on-ones of the Senior Bowl. I'm actually going to throw my curveball for my player in Ozzy Trapilo in terms of, have a little bit of a run on receiver as well as offensive lineman here. Look at that. It's such a good class that you just got to start taking them. For the Bills, you got to go KG at this point or Nick Scotton. You got to go after one of the defensive line positions. And I will say KG is going to be far lower floor than Tyleek. And I think I actually kind of want to go after more of the floor. And this edge class is so deep that I'd prefer to take risks later on. So I'm going to go actually after Tyleek Williams here, who I think is fantastic. He is higher on my board than KG. KG has a lot of room to grow, but Tyleek is just such a solid player, man. Such a solid player. And, he was, I think, once like 280. Now he's up to like 330, and he didn't lose any athleticism. He looked like he finally took the final step this year to greatness. And number 31 for the Kansas City Chiefs. They might be going tackle. I don't think they should. I think what you should do in this situation is sign Ronnie Stanley, send as much money as possible his way. Just do what you got to do there. But I'm looking at the players available, and I'm going to be honest, Shemar Stewart with Spags and having Chris Jones as a mentor, like, they have a fire lit under their ass now that they just got absolutely destroyed in the Super Bowl. So I'm going to go after Shemar Stewart here and see if they can kind of like replicate that type of success and now have a super weapon on their hands there in Stewart. The Eagles, Super Bowl champions. Congratulations to y'all. My best friend is an Eagles fan, so I got to hear about it plenty. But you guys are in a very interesting spot. You could go Membu to be able to have that short-term guard and long-term tackle. Of course, you have Mekhi Becton crying on the field. Does he get brought back? He's 25, could be the future. But how much money do you want to spend on your offensive line? when you could address it in this, right? There's a lot of questions to be had. I do think Myles Garrett could absolutely be the edge for you guys, but of course, in this simulation, we had him going to Detroit. Edge rusher does kind of feel like the right way to go, and I think Vic is going to love the idea of this. You got Jahad Campbell, who can play also as an outside backer, who also can play inside as well and kind of be extremely flexible. And based on the success of the defense, I think, like we talked about how Howie doesn't draft first round linebackers, this might be the difference one, because I think that Vic Fangio has earned far more of a say, and Jahad being used as a blitzer, being used as an edge rusher as well, I love that. And then you can end up adding a Landon Jackson. You could end up adding a Jack Sawyer if you wanted to. You could end up adding a Jordan Birch to play on defensive interior, to where I'd feel really comfortable with it. Now, do you want to already go that route and take the risk that, or not take the risk that Darius Alexander could slip, because he plays a very similar role to BG. He has even taken edge reps. Like, that'd be a trade back move. I'd trade back to like 45 and take Darius Alexander, even though, where's Darius on my board? He's number 25, but I'm actually going to go after Jahad Campbell, because it's just my dream to let Vic Fangio go crazy, and Jahad Campbell is just too good to let slip into the second round for me. Browns, we've taken Hunter and Jackson so far. Again, the vision is to sign a quarterback, a free agent quarterback, and be able to go from there. So with Hunter, with Jackson, I think now we can end up looking at edge. And look at this, Nick Scorton's here. Talk about consistency and just having a solid ass edge rusher. Like, he is so damn good. Where is he out on my board? Number 24. Like, you're in the number 24 player here at 33 at a high value position. Totally worth it. Giants, Cam Ward, number 3 overall. Great spot to be in. This is obviously where I'm going to be looking at corner. Jahdae Barron would play a very similar. He doesn't fit this defense at all. Like, let's just be honest. So I'm looking at Amos. I'm looking at Revel. I'm looking at Thomas here. And I guess, like, out of being realistic, I think Revel would go in this range, but maybe people will value Trey Amos because he doesn't come off that injury. Looked like one of the best corners there in Mobile as well. Really damn solid lockdown presence. You got the Titans, who took Abdul Carter at number 1 overall. Very interesting, but I do know this team is looking at potentially a tackle or interior offensive line, and Armand Membu could essentially be both, depending on how comfortable they are with him taking right tackle reps. I think that offensive line needs to continue to be boosted, and building the foundation for success is going to be the key to actually winning this league. So Armand Membu goes at 35. At 36, we got the Jacksonville Jaguars here, and Tetairoa McMillan taking round number 1. You got some damn good corners here. And again, Jahdae Barron, I don't necessarily see where he's going to have that level of success. Like, slot just doesn't necessarily garner. Like, there's a lot of good slots in the league. That's what I'm trying to get at. Like, I'm trying to see where a landing spot would be. But I think this team is going to go right down the street to Azareye'h Thomas, who's going to have incredible speed and, like, great intangibles, man. This guy's been fantastic and has had a ton of reps year over year. This is his first year getting, like, fully starting. He had 1 starting game last year at the end, and he still racked up 500 reps. Like, this dude is very skilled. Looked great in person, and then in Mobile, he ended up having a rough start and ended up bouncing back on the final day. That's exactly what teams look for. At 37 for the Raiders, you went Will Johnson in the first, and I'm not going to lie, it's kind of tempting to go after, like, Kenneth Grant here, just because, like, why the hell not just build a full Michigan defense? But I do think this team is going to look for their, I do think running back could wait. So, you know, because I want to go Quinshawn to this team. He's not going to be there at their next spot. I do think your next move would be to trade up for Will Howard. You have, of course, Chip Kelly as your offense coordinator. It would make a lot of sense. And Quinshawn is a damn good back. Like, anybody who wants to shit on Quinshawn early round 2, gonna be honest, we're seeing him late round 1 in a lot of mocks right now. So maybe the hype is there for him, but we're gonna pair him back up there with Chip Kelly. So right now, Will Johnson, Quinshon Judkins, vision would be to get Will Howard as well and just create a very well-rounded team right there. Number 38 for the New England Patriots ended up going after Mason Graham in the first round. And that's a good spot to be. Mason Graham, you could just pair him up with Kenneth Grant at this point. Again, trades would shift the priorities, but I do think edge rusher, wide receiver, and tackle are the biggest keys, and I feel really confident with Ursary. Like, he's going to need some time to develop. There is zero doubt in my mind. And he's going to have some early slip-ups. But A, he's better than what you have. But B, his high-level reps are awesome. Like, talk about maybe some flexibility issues because he curves his back and stuff. I'm just going to be honest. He was one of the best offensive linemen there in Mobile. Like, he had some of the best reps. I have a lot of confidence in him. So we're going to be going after Ursary here at number 38. Number 39 for the Chicago Bears. What did I say? We went Ashton Jeanty in the first. There is going to be offensive linemen here in the second. And guess what? There is. You got Tyler Booker here. Oh, ridiculous value. I mean, is there anybody else? You also talk about Belton, Milam. Milam looked a lot worse than I expected. I'm just going to be honest. In Mobile, he did not look comfortable at guard the way I thought he would. But regardless, we need edge. We need defensive interior. Kenneth Grant is here for the taking. Let's not mess around. We're going to go KG here for the Bears. Leaving at pick 40, the New Orleans Saints, who already went Tyler Warren. And, you know, Kellen Moore is coming from a lot of success there in Philly, and they won via pass rush. And looking at the options that are available, JT Tuimoloau can be the Josh Sweat there for Kellen Moore, and I absolutely love that. We're going to go JT Tuimoloau at 40, leaving the Bears to once again go after Tyler Booker at 41. So look at that, Bears fans. Kenneth Grant, Ashton Jeanty, Tyler Booker. Stop complaining. Ridiculous value. Great pickups. Number 42 for the Jets went Shedeur Sanders in the first round, and I mean, Kenneth Grant would have been nice here, but you still have a plethora of defensive interiors if you want to go after somebody. I will say, trying to think of, last draft, you think about it, right? They were valuing corner on the Lions extremely highly to where they used their first 2 picks on it. Siobhan Rivell is here, and Jahdae Barron is as well, but if you're looking at the style of corner, it's like Hairston or Rebel. So we're going to go after Rebel there. 43 for the Niners. Ended up going Walter Nolan in the first round. We're kind of in a pinch in terms of offensive line depth, but, you know, Anthony Belton would be someone who I'd legitimately consider here. But also, sometimes we can just go to get like someone like Princely, Jack Sawyer. I honestly think Jack Sawyer might be the best move at this point. Again, I have guys who I have higher. I get it. Like, you got Swinson. You guys know how much I love him, but not going to be drafting him where I think his value would be to me. It's not realistic. So I do think Jack Sawyer would be the pick here. You're just going to retool your defensive line and then maybe go and try to fill offensive line value. Don't reach an offensive line. Go after the best players available. Cowboys, speaking of going after offensive line, they surprisingly did in the first round, and honestly, I'm pretty happy by doing that. Because here in the second, you got Io Maynor here. You got Higgins. You guys are pretty set. You also could go after a running back like Caleb Johnson. So you guys are doing pretty damn solid. And so I'm looking at kind of the role that I'd want on this team. I honestly think Jalen Rolls would have a similar role to CeeDee Lamb. So I don't really think that's the route I would go. I think Jaden Higgins is fantastic. Like, he is pretty much a first-round player to me, and being able to get him here at 44 is ridiculous. Io Maynor is awesome as well, but I'm actually going to stick to my board and go after my next best receiver here in Jaden Higgins. So we retooled the offensive line, and now we're giving more weapons as well to Dak, and that's a pretty expensive position there at wide receiver that we're getting really good value to. At 45, for the Colts, went Ben Morrison in round number 1. Just go Jahdae Barron and kind of complete it here in round number 2, but not going to do that. We could go Xavier Watson, pair him up. Could also go after Eamon Wari, who I absolutely adore. But I do think they might try to continue working on that offense there. And you got Arroyo and you got Fannin. I think Fannon's fantastic. Like, he's not 230. He's up to 240. He was at 238 at the Senior Bowl and looked solid. There's some idiot who decided to look at like one route where he was doing a double move and tried to act like he was super stiff. Like, are you fucking kidding me? One route versus air, and you're just calling him like a stiff? Like, what happened to, look at the 2 games he needed to perform the best in. Look at all these games. What games do you care about here? You know what I care about? Penn State and Texas A&M. You know what are the best linebackers? Penn State and Texas A&M. You know what games he had over 100 yards in? Penn State, Texas A&M. Probably a lot of other ones too. No bullshit. This guy rises to the occasion every time. I don't get why there's this like anti-Harold Fannin thing. And he blocks very well for his size. Number 46, you got the Atlanta Falcons. Took Jalen Walker in round number 1. Still could go after an edge rusher here because I do think pass rush is king. But having a flexible defensive back is going to be super duper key. And honestly, Jahdae Barron, I think, could be potentially used even as a safety on this squad. So I like the being able to use him all over the field. Sometimes you just got to go best player available, and I think that he is that best player available. Get yourself the best players and then kind of work them into, and then be able to build your system around the players, right? And I think Jahdae Barron absolutely needs to be taken at 46. As much as I might be lower on him than the consensus, this is surely a great spot for him to go draft range wise. Number 47, Arizona. Took Michael in the first. Already hear the complaints, but it's okay. I love you guys. I will be going after defensive line again. I think defensive line is super duper key. And I'm looking at Derek Harmon here. I think the value is impeccable. You look at Josh Farmer. Josh Farmer is going to be somebody who potentially could go in the second. I'm not going to go there. I like the athletic potential there. But you got Norman Lott, you got Harmon, you got Sanders here. Granted, all of them are relatively smaller except for Harmon, who has proper size. I've seen him in the first round. I think it's going to be very likely that you guys end up selecting a defensive interior here in the first 2 rounds. And defense wins. Defense is king. We're going Derek Harmon at 47. 48 for the Dolphins. Malachi Starks, round 1. We're going to look at the offensive line here in round 2. You got Wyatt Milam here. You have Anthony Belton. And honestly, I'm going to take the shot. I'm going to go Anthony Belton and put him at guard and have him be the long-term tackle for you guys. He was the most impressive offensive lineman there in Mobile outside of Gray Zabel. He was ridiculous. Like, I mean, some of the best wins. He had some of the worst losses, but he also had some of the best wins. And when you kick him to the inside, I think a lot of his issues kind of, start to mitigate, and you have yourself a future franchise left tackle or right tackle because he proved to be able to play at both there in Mobile. He was at 370 pounds before the Senior Bowl, fun fact, per his agent, who told me, and then ended up getting down to 340. Number 49, we have the Cincinnati Bengals, and they selected Gray Zabel in the first round. Guess what? Al Golden, get your boy. We're getting Xavier Watts here at 49. Ball hawk. This team needs a center fielder as well that can end up just being an absolute hawk, and I love Xavier Watts for that. Seahawks, we got Will Campbell in the first round, and technically you could, if you bitch enough, I will end up saying, hey, you can go after Gray Zabel. If we want to put Will Campbell on the Bengals, like, you do what you want to do. But I think that flexibility is key. I think edge rusher, possible. Defensive interior, reasonable, but you'd have to go for a nose at that point. I don't like the idea of going linebacker with the guys available. So I'm actually going to go after the most flexible piece, or actually not the most flexible, the most high potential, and that's Nick Eamon-Wari, 6'3", 230 pounds, ball hawk as well. Pretty much, you just want this guy on your team. He's going to go in the first. I just can't ever find a landing spot for him over some of these other players that I think will be going before him. So he just slips. And you guys so far have been the beneficiary of players I love that slip. So continue to enjoy it. 51, excuse me. We took Mike Green in the first, even with the off the field concerns. So you got your edge rusher filled out. I think corner absolutely should be looked at. I think Max Hairston's fantastic. And if the medicals check out, like, to me, I thought he had a really pretty poor year, but he came to Mobile fully healthy and showed the exact corner that we were hoping to see. And he's physical. He might be 180, but who gives a crap, because he plays like he's 190 in terms of physicality and moves like he's 170. So I like that group, those group of characteristics. I'm going to take the bet on Maxwell Hairston. At 52 for the Broncos, we took Marion Hampton there in the first. And again, I talked about being able to get either Fannin or Arroyo here. If you're really stuck on going those two positions, I think that's perfect. You guys still get your guy. And so I think Arroyo's perfect. He was talking, I should probably say whom. I was talking about Sean Payton talked about needing a tight end that could run routes, but also be in line. And that's what Arroyo is. He got up to about 250 pounds, and he ended up playing phenomenally well. My only concern is that he has dealt with some injuries in the past. Number 53 for the Pittsburgh Steelers, we took Emeka Egbuka in round 1. Yeah, crazy shit. You guys know how little I do that, right? But looking at the corner value here, there's a couple players I love. Jalen Smith, he's somebody that you see right there at number 12 on my board. I think he's fantastic. I don't think he goes in the second round, though. Like, I just don't think there's a chance. He's too similar to Drew Phillips to me to be able to, like, in terms of, how much I love him, the hype, and then the physical tools to go in the second round. So I'm not going to have the Steelers do that, but maybe round 3 we do something like that. So let's focus on something else. You could look at the quarterback position here. I'm not going to. I'm going to actually look at the defensive interior position, because right now we are praying that 36, soon to be, well, eventually to be 37-year-old Cam Hayward is going to continue playing at an all-pro level, or also just be playing in general. There's going to be a point where he wants to hang the cleats up, and I don't blame him. I'm going to do something that's going to kill me for my Eagles. My Eagles. It's not my Eagles. My Steelers. I'm not an Eagles fan, but I'm going to go Darius Alexander here. I think defensive line needs to be a priority on this team, because we have thrived through having a really solid front 7, especially the front 4 to 5. And Darius Alexander is just perfect. Like, he is just so awesome. Number 24, 25 overall on my board. Like, just a damn good player. And, we need talent like that. We do. Because, again, we're kind of thriving on, like, aging veterans. We need to continue bringing on the youth. And number 54 for the Chargers, end up taking Colson Loveland in round number 1. Need to look at the defense here. Could go running back. Again, could try to double up on offense, but I do think Minter's going to be kind of pissed, being like, dude, get me some help. And we're looking at players, like Jordan Burch would be really fun, but I think he wouldn't really fit a Minter system. You could look at defensive interior if you want and go Omar Norman Lott here, who did phenomenally well in Mobile. Yeah, I mean, honestly, Ezraku just feels right. And that's going to piss me off so much, because I have the Packers sitting right there. Again, you could wait and get Josiah Stewart. Like, that is like a legitimate thing if you want to wait on edge and go after that running back spot. But this team has also kind of functioned with not spending super high draft capital on running back, and has done a very good job at it. So I'm going to break my own heart again and go Donovan Ezraku here to play the future edge there. 55, again, just got poached. Heartbroken. Darian Porter, round number 1. I already hear the complaints on that, but it's okay. I can take him. I do think that defensive line needs to be the focus here with the second pick. You could look at wide receiver, though. Ooh. Io Maynor playing the Christian Watson role. Let's do it. I like that a lot, actually. Yeah, you know what? We're going to turn a negative into positive. We're going to make some lemonade out of the lemons. Number 56, we got the Buffalo Bills. And Tylee Williams selected round number 1. I think edge rusher makes a lot of sense here as well, but I'm going to throw a curveball again. We're actually going to go after Jalen Rolls here, who plays on the boundary, and he is really, really good. He said he was playing at 80% during the Senior Bowl. Man, if you can give me another 25% of what he had, he might be a first-round receiver. Just going to put it out there. 57 for the Houston Texans. Ooh. Got a yawn coming in, boys. We got Luther Burden there in the first. Here in the second, we need to address offensive line. And you got Wyatt Milam here, and I think this is actually a realistic range for where he goes. Like, I think it's reasonable. If you miss out on it, go Johnny Cornelius on like day 3 or round 3. But we're going to go Wyatt Milam here to play guard and, just kind of fix up the holes that we have. At number 58 for the Panthers, we went James Pierce Jr. in the first round. And honestly, I'm looking at Omar Norman Lott. I'm just going to say, hey, why not pair up those two teammates again? Omar Norman Lott has sky's the limit type of potential for him. And he showed out at the Senior Bowl. He was 295, not 315, but he was damn good nonetheless. He's sitting there at number 30 overall on my board. At number 59 for the Baltimore Ravens, we took Josh Connerly in round 1, and I'm super happy to do that. At this point, you could look at Jack Besh as a reliable receiving receiver, contested catch receiver, and just basically, live willy-nilly. But I also look at edge here, and Jordan Burch being able to play that Calais Campbell role, I think would be fantastic. You play on the outside as well. I love that flexibility, so I'm going to go after Jordan Burch. At number 60, we got the Cleveland Browns, who have gone Hunter, Jackson, Scorton. I say round 3, go after your QB, because honestly, this is just incredible value for a top-tier back. And you look at Caleb Johnson, you look at Cam Scatabo, Henderson, you can't go wrong. And honestly, because Johnson has been able to work with a large workload, I personally would love to be able to bring him here. He's young with still a recent season of showing that he can be an RB1. So a lot of tread. I do think that he'd be a really solid back there for the Browns. At number 61 for the Washington Commanders, took Ozzie Trapilo in round 1. Feathers have been ruffled, but it's okay. I love you guys nonetheless. Cornerback-wise, I just don't think there's another corner that's going to work his way into the second. I love Mac McWilliams to death. He is now my number 49 or 39 player on my board. Like, I love him. But you guys just, I mean, you guys could do that. You guys talked to Jalen Smith. You guys actually, I say you guys, one of your scouts ended up pulling away Jalen from me in practice number 1, but it's okay. We got to talk to Jalen in practice number 2 or 3. One of those. But Jalen Smith's awesome. I think that he's going to be your pick in round 3. So I'm not going to go Mac McWilliams because it's a very similar thing. But also, Mac is a zone corner who has, like, he's solid as a man corner, but he's super smart in zone. So just keep your eyes out for that. There's these corners from the Senior Bowl that I just never really thought to study, who I ended up absolutely falling in love with, and I wish I saw them before. But regardless, we can actually go wide receiver here as well. And you got Jack Besh, and I love the idea of Restrepo or Besh on this squad for completely different reasons, obviously. They're completely different players. Besh is going to be more of a reliable guy in terms of the contested catch, just solid hands. Restrepo is just rock solid at getting open. And if I'm looking down the board, I could see someone like Kyle Williams playing the role of Restrepo better than pretty much anybody playing the Besh role. So I'm going to go after Jack Besh here for Washington. At number 62 for the Bills, we took Tyler Williams and Jalen Rolls, and that's a good spot to be in. That's a good spot to be in. Defensive interior as well as wide receiver have been addressed. I'm looking at edge next. And you got Princely here. You get Kyle here. Really good players nonetheless. I'm going to take it. No, Femi, I don't think I think he's from Los Angeles too. I don't trust him in the cold, but Femi is someone who I want to give a shout out at the very minimum. But I'm looking at Braden Swinson here as well. I don't know why he didn't go to the Senior Bowl or the Shrine Bowl as well, but this dude has ridiculous statistics. I don't know, like, he pushes the best of the best back, and like, he broke the anchor of Tyler Booker. I'm just going to be honest. He deserves to be the pick. I'm going to take it in. We're going to take it in. Number 63 for the Kansas City Chiefs took Shamar Stewart in round number 1. You could take a swing on developing a tackle here, but we've seen how horribly that's played out for you guys before, and I think it will continue to play out horribly. Please go to free agency and solve that issue yourself. Like, just do yourself the favor and do that. Defensive interior, you could just try to go and double up and, just build yourself a super squad. Linebacker is possible, Carson Schwezinger as well as Jeffrey Bossa, but those guys are pretty damn small. I do think wide receiver also, very, very unique player here in Savion Williams that could complement Rashee Rice and provide that contested catch and after the catch threat. Honestly, not a bad idea. Like, it's not a bad idea. Based on where he's projected to be drafted, this is a very realistic spot. I also think running back with Cam Scatterbo just kind of fits too well. I'd be worried about him going in the next couple of picks as well, potentially. Obviously, we already did select Judkins earlier, but, technically speaking, if he did slip, Judkins wasn't selected, be the prime candidate for the Raiders. But I also just be worried about a lot of teams, including the Chargers, trying to go and get their back as well. So I'm going to say that a key running game was really lost there for the Chiefs in the Super Bowl as well. We're going to go after Cam Scatterbo out of Arizona State. Leaving the Philadelphia Eagles at 64, we took Jahad Campbell to play linebacker edge in the first. And I, again, just pretty much thinking that we're going to have Fangio have a bit more control. I'm going to look at defensive interior. You got TJ Sanders here. That'd be really nice to replace Milton Williams. Are there any edge rushers as well who could kind of do a similar thing? Not necessarily seeing it for the value. Yeah, I mean, I love the idea of Femi Oladejo as well, kind of being on this squad, but I do have my concern. We're going to go wide receiver. I don't know why everybody's going wide receiver. Why is it the biggest need? It is like just such bullshit. Like, I'm just going to be so real. It is just so wrong to think that edge is a big position. I do think corner, not a bad one. Big play Saleh probably should retire. And if he does, you guys actually might have a lot of success with Jalen Smith. You guys have met with Jalen Smith. It's not a bad idea because he can play on the boundary. I mean, he plays a lot of boundary reps. Where does this talk about it? So yeah, he does not play in the slot. So he is a boundary corner. And he played in the slot a couple years before, so that's good. He transitioned to boundary for the first time this year, which explains why in off man as well as in quarter, he doesn't play well. He's 5'10", but this is the perfect Isaiah Rodgers replacement. So, again, feel free to fill it in because it's not going to affect if you want to switch it up. I'm going to go after my guy here in Jalen Smith. Feel free to watch him yourself, but this dude teleports around the field. Like, I'll obviously, when we do our cornerback video and update it post-combine, we'll get into it. But Jalen Smith is someone who I fell in love with, my number 12 player in the class, and I'd love to send him to you guys. Apparently, you met with him. The Commanders have met with him. You're not going to get him in the 3rd round. Maybe you might have to take the swing here in the 2nd. So, that's going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching. I love you. See you on the far side. Peace.